And now, for the week of January 30th, Photoshop TV is on the air.
Welcome to Photoshop TV from the National Association of Photoshop Professionals. And here's your hosts, the Photoshop guys, Scott Kelby, Dave Cross, and Matt Kloskowski.
All right, welcome to another steamy episode of Photoshop TV. Hey, we're coming to you once again from the graphics department at the National Association of Photoshop Professionals, where somebody creates Photoshop User Magazine. Well, welcome everybody. This episode is sponsored by the Epson Print Academy. They have a brand new tour out this year. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out at EpsonPrintAcademy.com. And of course, we're also sponsored by B&H Photo. It's where I get all my personal photo gear, all my video gear. Go check them out. They're unbelievable people, B&H Photo, or actually bhphotovideo.com.
Also, Wacom, we're sponsored by Wacom, makers of the widescreen graphics tablet, which this is not. This is the small one.
But we have one.
We have a widescreen one as well. Also, iStock Photo, the fastest growing royalty-free stock photo collection in the world.
Yes.
iStockPhoto.com.
Well, welcome everybody. We've got a great show planned for you. We've got all kinds of tips and tricks and various things. But of course, what we don't have is Dave Cross. Dave Cross is on the road with the Adobe Photoshop Seminar Tour. I think he's out in Houston or that other place, Austin, or one of the towns. He's out there, but
Atlanta. Yes, close.
He's in Atlanta, very close.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's on the road. He won't be here this week, but he did send us a tip. So even though he's not here, his tips live on.
Thank you to Dave in the fine country of Canada.
Hey, we got a great show. I brought some tips this week. I've got a tip on Photoshop productivity. I've got a tip that picks up kind of on an extract trick that I did. We got a lot of good response on that, so I'm going to take it one little step further today. Matt, what have you got?
I've got a tip on simulating a depth of field effect in Photoshop with a filter. Also, we have a special guest, Rod Harlan from the DVPA, is here to talk about the Adobe Production Studio. And as you mentioned, Dave left us a tip. And you know what? Even though Dave's not here, we kind of have something pretty cool in place of Dave.
Yes, it's not as good as Dave, but it's the next best thing. It's this. It's this
Dell.
It's this brand new Dell monitor. It's so new that we don't even have it. Okay, we do have one, but they just sent us this one. It's a brand new Dell monitor. This thing is just killer. But what's killer about it is, of course, the screen ratio, the widescreen is unbelievable. But there's something else. Matt, tell them what the secret thing on the side is.
Well, Scott, I've had this on my desk for about a week here, and number one, if you're a Photoshop user and you can get your hands on one of these, do it because you will love it.
Shoplift it if necessary.
Yes, do it. But on the side here, you'll see they have two USB ports, an SD card reader, and a compact flash card reader, all inside your monitor.
So your monitor reads your photos. It's crazy.
I'm telling you, if you don't have that on your monitor, it sounds silly, but I use it every day now.
He does.
So
I
do nothing but plug cards.
All right, so that's the Ultra Sharp 30-inch from Dell. Thanks very much to Dell for sending that to us. We're going to put it to great use. It will not be on Matt's desk all the time, just sporadically. All right, hey, before we get on to things, of course, I got some big news. This is huge. I got to do this thing. Matt, it's about Matt. It's Matt news. Okay, we have spawned some offspring. Not me and Matt. No, this show has spawned a spin-off. How's that? It's much better.
Thank you.
A spin-off. We have a spin-off podcast. It's a video podcast starring Matt Kloskowski. It's called Photoshop Killer Tips. It's brand new. And what's cool about it is, and what's different than this show is, it's just he posts every day, every weekday. He posts a new tip. It's just a quick tip. It's like a 1-minute download if you're using a high-speed connection, broadband or something.
1 minute to watch.
So every day you get to rock the house key with Matt Kloskowski.
Yes.
So here's how you subscribe to this free podcast. Go to the iTunes Music Store for Mac or Windows. Click on the podcast link and then search for Photoshop, and Matt's show will come up. So we want to congratulate Matt on having a brand new podcast. We're very excited about it. Go check it out, and you get your fill of the Rockin' the House Key each day with Matt Kloskowski.
Yes.
All right. Hey, also, it's time for our giveaway. We have, of course, the winner of last week's coming up. But first, what are you going to win this week? Because I know that's the only reason why you watch the show. Well, first, before I bring on the person who's bringing the gifts, I want to talk to you about this. This is the Photoshop World Workbook. If you go to Photoshop World, it's like you get a 900-page workbook. Well, some poor soul has to lay this out. It's actually somebody from here at NAP's graphics department, and this thing is just huge. It's very heavy. Watch. Oh, it's just giant. And the guy that lays it out, we brought him over here. He works just a few feet from us. Come on over. This is Dave Corman. Hey, Dave, come on over. Come on to the set. He brought us our gifts. This is the way This is the way that Dave dresses to come to work, and that got him on the show today. So here's what you win. If you win this week, you get the Adobe ball cap, you get this cool Adobe bag, you also get this...
This is the best prize of all.
Right here. You get this book, the Illustrator CS2 Killer Tips book, written by, guess what? Rockin' the House Geek Laskowski and Dave Cross. You get that, and plus you also get this very, very tiny Dell MP3 player. It's called the...
A DJ Diddy.
A DJ Diddy. Yo. So, I can't believe I just said yo. Anyway, you get all this stuff, and Dave Corman will bring it to your house. So, Dave is now leaving in a car right now for your house. Thank you, Dave. How about a nice hand for Dave Corman? Quite a guy.
You forgot there's one more prize.
There is one more prize, a very important prize, a full conference pass to Photoshop World in Miami this March. All right, well, it's time to do stuff.
Yes.
And you do the first stuff.
I do the first
Matt
stuff.
brought a tip for you. Go ahead, Matt. What do you got?
Okay, let's do stuff. So this week's stuff is, I'm going to first talk about how to simulate or create a depth of field effect inside Photoshop using a filter. So as you can see, I've got a photo open here, and actually before I go on, I just want to let you know I'm taking this technique from Photoshop User Magazine. Ben Wilmar and Jack Davis actually did a tutorial using this very same technique in here, so I'm just kind of giving you a taste of what they showed in an issue of Photoshop User. All right, now we've got the photo. What we want to do, if you look at the foreground here, see how it's sharp and it's in focus? If you look at the background area, well, that's kind of in focus too. What we want to do is simulate depth of field. So all we want to do is have this flower in focus, and there's a great filter in Photoshop that does it for us. So we're going to start off here in the Channels palette, and I'm going to create a new channel. You can see I've got some alpha channels here already, but just click the Create New Channel button at the bottom, and then click the small eyeball next to the RGB channel at the top so we can see our photo. But look down here, you can see that my alpha channel is still the one that I've targeted. Now I'm going to go to my gradient tool, and I've got my black and white gradient selected here, and I'm just going to click and drag toward the top, from the middle to the top of the flower here. And look what it does in the alpha channel. See how it creates that soft fade, and you can see it here on the photo as well. So now what I want to do is I want to get this bottom part of the photo in there as well. I only want the flower to be in focus here. So the way I do this, a little trick. Go to your mode, your blend mode here, change it to screen, and watch what happens. When I click and drag the gradient, it actually just lightens that area toward the bottom here. So now all I've got, if you look at the alpha channel here, this flower is black. Everything else is white. Now the next thing you need to do is you need to select the rest of the flower. So do it pretty easily with the magic wand tool. Just click in here. Whoop, we need to go back to our RGB channel. And then click with the magic wand, and then shift click a few areas and just select the rest of the flower in here. Now we've got it selected, and what you'll do now is go back to your alpha channel here, and then Alt, backspace, and what it does is it fills it with that foreground color. So now I've got, and the foreground color was black, so again, the flower is what's staying in black. That's what's going to be in focus. Now, let's go back over to our layers palette, and we've got our, let me deselect here, go back to the layers palette. We've got our background layer. I'm going to choose Filter, Blur, go down to Lens Blur. Inside Lens Blur, the first thing you'll see up here is called a depth map. Change that from none to that alpha channel that you just created. It's called Alpha 1, and watch what happens here. See how that flower automatically came into focus, but everything else is blurred. So let's look at the preview button here. That's before, that's after. So see how nicely it blurred the foreground and the background area, but it left our flower intact. Now there's one thing to remember here. At the top of that dialog, you saw an option for fast or more accurate. Chances are you care about accuracy, you care about quality, so fast is really not that much faster. So you want to always check off more accurate. All right, so that's it for this tutorial. Now, it's our tradition to always have a Canadian on the show, and since Dave Cross can't be here today, Nicole is representing Canada, and since all Canadians know each other, we thought she'd be the best to introduce Dave.
Hi everyone, I'm here to introduce our neighborhood friend from Canada, Dave Cross. Hi Dave.
Hi Dave.
How's it going, eh? Hey, it's great to be here. I'm in Atlanta. I wish I could be there with you guys and the other Canadian, Nicole. Hey, we're having a great time. We have some beers. Everything's great. Talking a lot about Canadian topics and, you know, the new conservative government and everything. Hey,
And hockey.
And hockey, eh? Hockey's great. So here's the tip I brought, eh?
Thanks, Dave.
Great, thanks Dave.
Yes, I have a simple little tip, and it's a way to use the filter, the lens flare filter, with a little more flexibility. Because normally, here's what happens. You go to apply the lens flare, which is under render, lens flare, and it basically brings up this dialog box, and you can drag things around to position and decide what type of lens you want and how bright you want it. But the problem is, once you click OK, you're basically done. You can't change your mind. So what I'm going to suggest instead is we do this. First of all, let's make a new layer, and then let's increase the canvas size. We're going to give ourselves more room to work with. So we're going to add lots more than we need, probably 3 inches relative all around the outside. And let's get it on the screen so you can see it. Then we're going to take our layer here and fill it with black. So I can see the black is my background color. I can press Control Backspace on the PC, should be Command Delete on the Macintosh. Now remember, our picture is smaller than this, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to go back to our lens flare filter. I can see it right there, but if I choose that, it'll just reapply it. So I either have to go back down to the original or hold down the Alt key when I choose the filter and say I want to go to the dialog box. And basically what I'm going to do is position that pretty much centered. I want to really just focus on the relationship between, I'm going to actually use this one, I think, and put the brightness down to where I want it, something like that. And basically I'm just looking at the positioning of these two things together. So now I click OK, which will give me a nice lens flare, but of course sitting on a black background. Well, all we have to do is change the blend mode. So when you change the blend mode on anything black to screen, basically the black goes away. But you still have your lens flare, and if I take my move tool, I have, whoops, that wasn't the move tool, V for move, there we go. You can see that now I have a lens flare that I can reposition wherever I want it on my image. So let's say we just want it to be reflecting in the water as an example. And then once we're happy, all we would have to do is go back to our background layer, and from the image menu choose Trim based on the top left pixel color, which is white. Click OK. Then we get back to our original size, but we have the lens flare positioned where we want it, and we still have, even at this point, even though we've cropped it, a bit more of an option if we want to do a bit of moving. Oops, wrong layer, Dave. Let's try clicking on that one. There we go. So you can see, I can still move now. The problem is you can see at the bottom here, you can sort of see where that screening effect was. So you want to be a little careful about that. Still don't want to position it pretty much where you want it before you crop it, but that's a simple way so you can take a filter like lens flare and make it movable.
Alrighty, thanks, Dave. It's always nice to have Canada so finely represented.
Dave would be proud.
Dave would be proud if he was here. All right. Hey, speaking of not being here, Dave, of course, is still on the road with the Adobe Photoshop Seminar Tour, so make sure you check him out. This week he was, I think, in Atlanta?
Yeah, if you want to see Dave Cross on the road, yeah, this past week he was in Atlanta. You might want to check him out. He'll be in Tampa, our hometown, on January 30th. Also, he'll be in Phoenix on February 27th, which, by the way, is my birthday.
That's right. Matt will be 17,
you guys might want to know.
17,
Yes, I will be 18. And he goes back to his homeland. He goes to Toronto on March 28th and to Ottawa, where is actually where Dave's from, was on March 31st.
Incidentally, those are both also Matt's birthdays as well. Okay, if you don't get a chance to catch Dave out on the Power Tour, you can also catch Ben Wilmore, who's out with his Photoshop Photographers Tour. Just an incredible day of learning. And that is coming next to Houston on February 4th, and then again in Chicago on April 14th. A great day with Ben.
And finally, there's one more guy we forgot who's out on tour. It's Burt Monroy. And if you haven't seen Burt, it's just an experience.
It's just
so
amazing.
yeah, it's an experience. Go check him out at his website, Burt Monroy, to see the stuff that he does. But if you want to see him on tour, you can go to San Antonio on February 24th, which is not my birthday, or Oklahoma City on March 6th, and finally Richmond, Virginia on March 8th. So you can go find out more information on all the seminars at photoshopseminars.com.
Excellent. So check it out. Those guys have got some great tours. What's next, Matt?
Next, I think you have a tip to do.
I have a tip to do.
Yes.
This is the productivity tip that I was talking about earlier.
Clear the way.
All right. This tip is just basically a way to save time inside of Photoshop, and it's something that a lot of people know about. I mean, some people know about it. It's one of those things where if you know about it, it's like, yeah. But if you don't know about it, it's like, hey. It's that kind of tip.
Yes.
Actually, before we start this tip, the reason why I wanted to do this was kind of inspired by a friend of mine. Somebody's been using Photoshop a long time, has the latest version of Photoshop, has CS2, and I was like doing this thing in Photoshop, and they were like, dude, what's that? I'm like, you don't know about scrubby sliders? So I realized that a lot of people don't know about scrubby sliders. So even if you have Photoshop CS or CS2 and you know about scrubby sliders, I have a little secret kind of hidden thing that you might not know about. So let's try that. Here we go. First, let's take a look at what scrubby sliders are. Scrubby sliders were kind of stolen from like After Effects, which is another Adobe product, so it's perfectly okay to steal from other Adobe products. Now, here's what they are. Rather than just moving the slider and everything, you know, here to move, I got the Unsharp Mask dialog open here.
Well, that's a nice photo, Scott.
Well, thank you,
Where'd you
Matt.
get
Thanks
that
for
photo?
noticing. This photo, why, this came from iStockPhoto.com. Thank you for thank you for noticing there, Matt. Working a little plug in there. Thank you. Well done, Matthew.
Hey.
Anything to help the cause. Okay, back to our story. Here we go. Here's the slider. This is not a scrubby slider. This is what we call a regular slider. But the fun slider is when you take your cursor and you move it over the word amount. And you see it changes there. I'm going to zoom in so you can really see it, especially for those of you who are watching us actually on an iPod. See it right there? See how when you move your cursor towards it, it goes pow. It gets a little hand with two arrows. That's the scrubby slider, and here's how it works. You just click on the name, and as you click and drag, it changes the value. So let me just back off so you can see a little better. There we go. As you drag, it changes the values for you, so you don't have to try to worry about hitting right on this little spot every time. You can just do it right here. All right, so that's trick one. Trick number two, if you hold the Shift key, it doesn't move in single digits anymore. Watch. Hold the Shift key, and now it moves much, much faster in 10 increments of 10. But that's not the cool one. Let me go over here and show you the cool one. Let me open up the Layers palette. This is the one I think that might get you. Let's add a new layer. And not a new document, but actually a new layer. Come on, Matt, that was a great opportunity to say something there.
I would never.
I know. We're going to open up the layer style dialog box. Now, almost every place in Photoshop that has a field gives you scrubby sliders. Except here, look, opacity, there's not there. But believe it or not, hidden deep inside there, see, look, it doesn't scrub. There actually is a trick to get scrubby sliders. The trick is move over the field. On Macintosh, you hold the Command key. On PC, you hold the Control key, and look, scrubby slider appears right there. Da-da-da. That's
Scrubby's back.
Scrubby's back. That's the secret little tip right there that you might not have known. The secret way to get scrubby sliders in places where scrubby sliders don't work. So you see, scrubby sliders are not just for After Effects anymore. Speaking of After Effects, how do you like that for a little segue?
Very good segue.
I happen to have with me one of my best buddies in the world and the executive director of the Digital Video Professionals Association, Mr. Rod Harlan.
Hello, hello.
Rod is, just like we're into all focused on Photoshop, Rod is focused on all the video stuff. And of course, Adobe made some real big announcements this week. And Rod's going to tell us what the scoop is. So what's the big deal with the whole production studio and what's the scoop?
Well, what it was on the 17th of February was when Adobe came out with this whole new product line called the Adobe Creative Suite Production Studio. And what they did was they basically revved their entire video line of products. Now that includes After Effects, Premiere, Encore, and Audition, as well as the suite bundles, or the studio bundles as they're calling them now. Also include, if you get the Premiere edition, you get Illustrator CS2, Photoshop CS2, as well as something new called the Dynamic Link.
I want that
and
one.
The Bridge.
That's the one.
So that's the one to get. That's the
one
one to
I
get.
want.
So it's pretty neat. I mean, it's across the board. You want to hear some of like the top
Oh,
features
yeah,
and that
absolutely.
kind of thing?
Like, what's the hot stuff?
The hot stuff, well, Adobe's really pushing the integration, and that's awesome. I mean, it's great in that now for the first time they have kind of a common interface all the way throughout all of the applications, and you have this thing called Dynamic Link. So if you're in Premiere and you're editing something and then you hit the Dynamic Link button, you can pop it over into After Effects, still see it because it was probably cached in real time when you were playing it, still see an After Effects in real time, add your special effects without having, you didn't have to render first. You didn't have to render out of Premiere to go into After Effects, nothing like that. It just pops in there, see it, you add your special effects, and boom, you can go right back into Premiere, and no rendering time, none of that kind of stuff. So that's a huge, huge savings.
Where did they get the idea between moving between applications like that?
I don't know.
I like that, though. No, that sounds great. That sounds awesome.
New in After Effects, well, in all the applications, but especially in After Effects, there's a brand new user interface. If you're an After Effects user, you're going to hate it when you first open it up because it's different.
I hate
you're
it
not gonna
already.
like it. But give it 48 hours and you will love it. Like that's what it took me. It took me 2 days of working
That's the
with
problem.
it.
I've only spent like 30 hours on it.
And it's absolutely fantastic. OpenGL support in After Effects now, so if you had a really fast video card, After Effects runs tons faster. So it's not so much about the processor anymore, it's more about the actual graphics card. Encore and Audition also have updates. In fact, on the DVPA website, if you just go right to the homepage, dvpa.com, we have a new Adobe Production Studio Resource Center. So you can get all the new features and enhancements and see all the highlights and all that kind of good stuff.
It's true. That's not it. Be careful. No. Here's the thing. I've been there. He has done a great job. There's also a video. You did a video there.
I did a podcast.
You did a video that kind of shows you little shots of all, and you can, and we're going to show you some of those too, of course. But he go there and catch all his stuff because he's got a ton of resources there.
We have a ton of new tutorials. We're posting new tutorials every day. We've got 3 hot new After Effects tutorials that are already up there that are brand new in After Effects 7. And something else that's new in After Effects is you get all these presets. We show you how to combine those presets to save yourself some work and then do all those other cool new stuff. So it's really awesome. So
excellent.
It's worth it checking out.
Well, despite the fact that we love still images so much, it's good to hear that Adobe's got all that cool stuff. Make sure you go by and check out his site at dvpa.com to get his resource center. All right. Thank you, Rod, for being here today very much. We appreciate that. And now we're going to turn things over to Matt Kloskowski with the latest Photoshop news.
It's Photoshop Action News from the Action News Center with Storm Team coverage featuring Matt Kloskowski.
All right, my snappy co-host over there. Before we go anywhere, before we do anything, we're not going anywhere, but this has nothing to do with weather, so it's all Photoshop.
Storm Team weather.
Right. Hey, first this week, I mentioned a few weeks ago, Alien Skin released a plugin called Exposure. Well, they were talking about a plugin called Exposure. They announced it. Well, Tuesday the 24th, the product was released. I actually got it, played around with it. It's pretty cool. It's a plugin for Photoshop that brings the look and feel of film to digital photography. So you can go check it out at alienskin.com. Also, the folks over at Damn Useful have new
me?
No, it's just DAM Useful. They have a product that it allows you to to do some quick proofing corrections to RAW files right inside Bridge. So you can go to damnuseful.com, check it out. It looks pretty cool. And next up, the Atom Conference is coming to Monterey, California. And there is where you can go. You can go check out all the big shots in the industry. You got Russell Brown, Julianne Kost, Adam Pratt, Morty Golding, Michael Ninnis, and it's a 3-day workshop geared towards directors, designers, illustrators who just want to get a handle on Adobe's products. Here's the thing, though. You check it out. You can go to the atomconference.com, but your registration fee, not only does it include some meals during the conference, but it includes the Adobe Web Bundle, which includes the Creative Suite 2 Premium, as well as the Macromedia Studio 8. So go check it out at their website. And then finally, Microsoft has kind of given us a sneak preview of some of their designer tools. The first one's called Interactive Designer, and then the other one's called Graphic Designer. So we'll put a link to it on our website. That's the news for this week, my fine Photoshop friends. Not the weather, the news. Thank you very much, and back to my announcer, Scott.
All right, thanks for the news. And don't forget, next week we'll also have traffic updates on the 9s. All right, Matt, what do we have next in our contest?
All right, first, the prizes from last week were the incredible Adobe Designer Messenger Bag.
Courtesy of our friends at Adobe Systems.
Also, the Photoshop World Conference Pass ticket.
Courtesy of us.
Courtesy of us. And then 5 signed copies of
the Classic
Photoshop
Effects book.
Classic Effects book. So I've got the answer. First of all, the question. The question was, where would you embed your email address into a photo? The answer is go to the File menu, go down to File Info. You'll see an option for IPTC Contact, and in there's an email address field. So it's a little kind of weird, but that's Dave Cross.
That's Dave Cross. He comes up with tough questions. So. And although he's not here, we still have his contest this week. And we know this week's prizes are that cool bag that you saw Dave brought on earlier, and all the goodies.
I got to give the winner.
Oh, I'm sorry, the winner's name.
The winner, Jeremy Norwood. He's from Chrome Imaging in Washington, D.C. So congratulations, Jeremy.
Congratulations, Jeremy. And, of course, someone else is doing all the stuff that I mentioned earlier before I cut Jeremy off. So we're going to have that trivia question coming up right after this message, so don't go away. Welcome back, everybody. I am Scott Kelby, and of course, joining me is Matt Kloskowski. And let's go right to the contest.
All right, this week's contest question is, we're going to make it work for this one. What is missing from this dialog box? So it's a little bit tricky.
Ooh, that is tricky.
Yeah.
What's missing?
Email your answers to photoshoptv@photoshopuser.com by February 3rd, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Excellent. And what do they win, Matt?
This week they win an Adobe bag.
You saw that earlier,
Inside the Adobe bag is a ball cap, Illustrator CS2 Killer Tips book by myself and Dave Cross, the Dell MP3 player, and a Photoshop World conference ticket.
Excellent. Hey, speaking of Photoshop World, don't forget, we're going to be broadcasting live from down there. Matt's teaching classes, I'm teaching classes, Dave Cross is teaching classes. Everyone that you've ever heard of in the Photoshop community is teaching there. It's going to be a blast, and we're going to, of course, be broadcasting Photoshop TV live from down at Photoshop World. Find out more information about Photoshop World, of course, at photoshopworld.com. But if you're on the East Coast, it's so cheap to fly down and hang out with us. If you're in New York City, for example, we just went to Expedia.com and found out you can fly from JFK down to Miami for $197. So cheap, cheap, cheap.
And I literally, we just looked this up. You can go from Pittsburgh down to Miami for $217. So not bad.
Excellent. So it's freezing up there, but it'll be warm and beautiful in Miami.
All right. Well, next up we have Scott. You're going to do another tip for us.
We do. I have another tip, and this is kind of a takeoff on a tip I did a few episodes ago.
Yeah.
In that tip I did in that episode, I showed you how to trace around the image using the brushes. So let's take a look in here. Remember how we talked about going to extract, a filter menu, choosing extract. I talked about how you just grab a big brush and you trace around here. Well, I have just a little trick for you that'll help. Let's undo that. Instead of just trying to trace around and be real precise here, there's a little trick you can use. If you hold the Command key on Mac or the Control key on PC, watch the cursor. It changes to look more like a little round target. And what it'll do is it will actually find the edge for you. Now, you only use this on areas that are well-defined areas, not on, her flyaway hair. So you would hold down the Command key on Mac, the Control key, and look how it just follows right along. Then when you get to the areas that are kind of flyaway like this, you can use the larger brush here. And I was pressing the bracket keys on my keyboard, by the way, is the trick to get those. Then you can kind of just select all these areas with a big wide brush. So the trick was to use that, hold the key down, makes it easier to select those areas. And then we'll just kind of come across here and tighten that up. Grab the paint bucket tool, click in here, and when you click OK, you can see how it extracted her off the background. So that was just a little trick, kind of building on the tip that I did just a few weeks ago. By the way, if you want to go back and watch that tutorial I was talking about, the extract tutorial, I did that back in episode 10, so you can go to our website, photoshoptv.com, and find a link to it there.
Seems so long ago.
It does. Or go to the iTunes Music Store, of course, and they still have it there. You can watch it right within iTunes. All right, Matt, you've got actually a tip inspired by the blog, the Q&A from the blog.
Yes. Our Q&A from the blog, Ben wrote in, and Ben asked, through some weird key combination, I changed the color of the background used in Photoshop, and how do I get the original color back?
Now, I think Ben Wilmore would know that, don't you?
Yeah, it wasn't Ben Wilmore?
No. Oh, okay.
All right, so he asked, how did he get the color back? Okay, so when I say the background here in Photoshop, I mean the background inside your Photoshop window. So not the background behind the screen, but the background that your image is. And you can kind of even resize that if you want to. So he changed this color area by accident. Well, the way to get it back is set your foreground color. The original default color was 192, RGB 192, 192, 192. So set your foreground color to that. Go to your paint bucket tool. Hold down the Shift key and click on that background area, and that'll change it. Shift click. Sorry. Hold down the Shift key and Shift click. Now, you can see if I set my foreground to black, here's what happens. If I Shift click, see it changes it to black. So if you want to change it from that gray color, you can do that just as easy. So thanks for the question, Ben. We'll be sending you a Photoshop TV t-shirt, and now you know how to get the color back into your background.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Matt. Okay, we like to close each show by giving you some projects to do between now and next week's show. But before we do that, hey, next week we're going to have a very important giveaway I want to talk about before we go to next week's show. Epson Print Academy is one of our big sponsors. Well, Epson was nice enough to give us an incredible printer. It's the same printer that I use, the R2400. And I want to show you, this is the size print that it puts out right here. This is one of my own prints. Beautiful printer. It's the exact same printer that I use myself. I have never fallen in love with a printer like I have this one. 13 by 19 print. It's fast. It's quiet. It's beautiful. It is the killer printer. And next week you'll have a chance to win one right here on PhotoshopTV.com. Cool. Now here are your 3 projects for next week. Ready? Number 1. You know that extract tutorial I did just a few moments ago? The one where I had the woman and I'm taking her off that white background? I'm going to make that available for you. Thanks to our friends at iStockPhoto.com for putting that, letting us put it on our website where you can go download it and practice with that very same photo. So your project there is go download the photo from our website and stop by iStockPhoto.com and check out. They got a brand new thing called By Request. So if you're looking for stock photography, they have 3 new ways to help you find exactly what you're looking for. Check them out at iStockPhoto.com.
Also, check out the unofficial Photoshop weblog. You can find it at photoshop.weblogsinc.com.
Yes, they're great supporters of our show, so thank you guys very much. Make sure you go check them out. They're great people. They got great stuff. It's great, great, great.
Great.
And lastly, your 3rd project is, what are you going to do to learn Photoshop between this week and next week? Go to Matt's brand new video blog. Go to the iTunes Music Store, click on the podcast button. I said blog, didn't I? I meant podcast. Go to the podcasts button and search for Photoshop, where you'll find killer tips, Matt's killer tips. You can also find it by going to photoshopkillertips.com. So a brand new podcast from Matt Kloskowski. He will be rocking the house each and every week. And of course, next week, joining us again will be Dave Cross is back from his many travels. Guys, thank you so much on behalf of myself, Scott Kelby, and Matt Kloskowski.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you guys next week. Thank you so much for watching another episode. Another salacious episode.
Steamy
episode, if you will, of Photoshop TV.